The Kuala Lumpur High Court has acquitted ex-Supermax Corp MD Datuk Seri Stanley Thai Kim Sim of insider trading in relation to APL Industries. Judicial Commissioner Datuk Azhar Abdul Hamid also quashed the guilty verdict of former Remaisia Tiong Kiong Chun. The two men were convicted by the KL Sessions Court in 2017. Thai, who is also APLI CEO, was sentenced to a 5-year jail term and 5 million ringgit fine for communicating non-public information to Tiong, then a licensed intraday trader with a stockbroking company. Meanwhile, Tiong was sentenced to 5 years jail and a fine of 10 million for disposing of 6.21 million APLI shares while in possession of the said non-public information. In his decision today, the judge said he found that the convictions were not safe. This was after he heard submissions from both sides. The prosecution had pinpointed as the source of insider trading a purported telephone conversation between the two men, after which Tiong sold the APLI shares owned by his mother-in-law and mother. However, the defense lawyers argued that there was no evidence of the phone being tapped, nor was there any other information to convict the duo, and that all the prosecution had was circumstantial evidence. World Bank Group lead economist Richard Record says it will be challenging for the Malaysian economy to go through another COVID-19 lockdown after the number of cases breached the 11,000 mark. He points out that Malaysia already has elevated debt levels, while its fiscal deficit was of a significant scale even before the outbreak. Malaysia's government debt is now at about 60% of GDP, while the country's fiscal deficit is expected to rise to 6%. Record says Malaysia has, however, done well in terms of its rapid health response and economic stimulus packages. The challenge going forward, he says, is to gradually wind down some of these stimulus measures and move towards a more targeted approach to help those that are particularly vulnerable, as well as look at rebuilding the country's fiscal space and balances to prepare for the next crisis. The World Bank lowered its 2020 GDP forecast for Malaysia to a contraction of 4.9% versus its earlier estimate of a 3.1% decline. Access to Bursa Malaysia's website has been restored after it was temporarily disrupted by a technical issue earlier this afternoon. In a statement today, Bursa said the problem was not related to cybersecurity issues. The regulator last encountered a technical issue about 2 months ago, with trading halted on the bourse. Trading only resumed the following morning. This time, however, the malfunction did not affect trading. By 5 p.m. today, the benchmark FBM KLCI was down 7.76 points or 0.51% at 1,503.9, partly due to profit-taking in rubber glove makers' shares and as investors continued to weigh the impact of the resurgence in global COVID-19 infections on global markets. On the broader market, losers led gainers 612 to 412. 5.15 billion securities were traded for 3.59 billion ringgit. Science, Technology and Innovation Minister Khairi Jamaluddin says the government is expected to be able to decide on a COVID-19 vaccine by early next year. He says data from several COVID-19 vaccine clinical tests will be analysed at year-end and that his ministry is currently discussing the legal implications and procurement model for the vaccine with the Health Ministry, Finance Ministry and the Attorney General's chambers. According to Khairi, Putrajaya is also in talks with other international pharmaceutical companies for direct supply without having to undergo the COVID-19 vaccine global access allocation plan. He says he has also requested for an agreement with China to be finalized as soon as possible. Meanwhile, negotiations with COVAX on Malaysia's participation in the facility to obtain the vaccine are ongoing. To date, Malaysia has recorded a total of 11,135 cases with 101 new patients today and 4 new clusters, 2 in Sabah and 1 each in Selangor and Johor. There are 1,062 active cases in the country. No new deaths were reported, leaving the death toll at 134. A new national poverty line income will be introduced next year under the 12th Malaysia Plan. Quoting Minister in the PM's Department Economy, Datuk Sri Mustafa Mohamad, Bernama reports this is to ensure that the approach to eradicating poverty is more targeted and focused. Currently, the PLI is at 2,208 based on state, urban and rural data, but the Minister believes the issue of poverty could be addressed more effectively. The B40 group, for instance, was one category, but now it has been broken down into 4 tiers. Mustafa said the government is in the process of conducting engagement sessions with various stakeholders to obtain views to review the PLI. In July, Malaysia revised the PLI to 2,208 from 980 ringgit, a rate last captured in 2016 using a methodology from 2005.